командами, Agile компаниями, и он один из тех людей, у кого можно наблюдать Agile головного мозга. Это когда, слыша в докладе какие-то упоминания фактов, он может сказать источник, где это было впервые сказано, кем, зачем и почему вообще это возникло. Так что поприветствуем.
Не так.
Ты хочешь отсюда просто?
Today I have to be really agile because just in the morning I realized I have to speak in English. We are in an international conference here, and there are a lot of friends and colleagues and speakers who are coming from different countries. So I have a question. Does anyone has a challenge with the English? Okay, with the microphone is the challenge. What? Speed up? Okay, good. So I had this talk on community meetup on April, and I realized that it's not fair to my colleagues and friends to make a same talk second time, so I had to redo it. It's a second version, so we are incrementally, iteratively improving the talk, and the whole idea is that today is a very good example of a conference when we already have a lot of case studies, a lot of examples of real companies who are already talking about the way of scaling. So what I'm going to explain is few of ideas why and few of hints how do we transform. And of course, because I'm the last one of the last speakers, I understand you are tired a bit. So I'm going to entertain you a little bit. Does anyone like the Star Wars? Yeah, so you understand this. So this was done, you see the last year it was a big advertising campaign. So as a manager, I've been working in industry as a manager for many, many years. So I learned as a manager you have to prepare something in advance to get it done in the right way. So instead of having a problem on release day to make a photo of Star Wars, I did it 6 months behind. So this is a photo with the Star Wars trooper made in May when the movie was released later. This is a question of experience. And you can see I've been in IT industry for many years. Over the last years, I work with companies. We can call it consulting, but in reality, I stick to a company for months, even sometimes for years. This gives me possibility to share the knowledge not only of my company, but also for many companies I worked with. And in the galaxy far, far away. What triggered me to talk about Star Wars, because when I see the history of Agile movement and so on, it somehow looks like a history of behind the saga. If you watch the saga, and actually I was one of few lucky guys who watched the even first, I think the 6th and 5th chapter I saw when they were released. I'm old guy. So Galactic Republic was the ruling the universe, and there were guys in Galactic Republic, but then something changed. This is funny if you know the whole history, because the Galactic Republic was stable enough, but then it got somehow disrupted and converted into the Empire. So in the Clone Wars, the second episode of the whole saga, the clones were introduced as helpers to the Galactic Republic to keep the peace. But then something triggered in their mind, and they followed the orders of an evil emperor, and they became the stormtroopers, the evil empire army. And then, of course, the rebels came, and they came to change the world to the better. This absolutely sounds like a history of Agile. So this is a picture, and this is a very funny picture by Tom Gilb. So actually, he and some people like himself been doing the engineering development in very agile fashion, in a very short iterations, in working close with a customer who was a scientist or some engineer. It was 70s. But then something triggered in mind of the industry. And we've got a lot of waterfall people affected the way the industry thinks. So we've been fighting with waterfall, and many conferences been talking about Agile versus waterfall. which is probably was like status quo. The empire was status quo, and then some rebels came at 2001 and said, okay, we know the way to work differently. And then we see the emerging of many methodologies. So actually some of them emerged before the manifesto came as the document. And this document is probably one of the most powerful documents in the world, because it changed the IT industry. And as we know, the IT industry is everywhere now. So actually, we see now computers everywhere. We see them in the way we live, in the way we work, in the way we even facilities management, so whatever. And that's why I think the mindset which brings Agile and agility is definitely has to be growing, but still the brand. The idea, what happened with the industry, we really understand that in 90s, when the growth of the personal computers market, the growth of mobiles, the growth of devices that run by software, definitely spread it very significantly, and that makes industry to jump. It was like a phase jump from nothing to the huge demand. And suppliers, as we are people who develop the software, people who develop software on demand for some businesses who just need the software, people who develop software as a part of our organization, and especially outsourcing company who provide it as a service, we just jump it and we grow, and we still doesn't know how to handle this. And that's one of the reasons why Agile as a brand is still very popular. But in reality, it's losing its popularity. Since 2010, there are a lot of talks like we have to we have to finish the speculating on Agile. And it's true. But still, this is a survey, this was already mentioned today, and it's really good to be the last speaker on the conference, one of the last speakers, sorry Michael, and you can refer to all the talks before. So actually, I saw already a mentioning of State of Agile survey. It runs for 10 years already. So this year they published 10th results, and it still says the reasons companies want to introduce Agile. They're usually changing a bit from year to year, but the main drivers, we want faster time to market, we want better productivity, we want better quality, and we want people engagement. And some more, of course, to see. So we still need agility, but maybe we just have to be careful with Agile as a topic, as a brand. And the reason for this is that we already see the change in the evolution of the brand. There's a wonderful article, I really recommend you to go and read it after the conference, call it The Third Wave of Agile. And the authors of the article, they introduce a simple idea. They say the wave starts when people start talking about this, about the buzzword. And it ends when it becomes a commodity. So when the manifesto was introduced, as I said, at that time it was like rebels against empire got together, just 17 people got together to discuss what they do differently compared to the whole industry at that moment. And they discussed it, okay, here's some principles, okay, maybe you don't see it clearly, but it's called Agile for teams. And it's ended somewhere already. So today, many companies, they don't talk about Agile for teams. It's not popular anymore. Don't talk about this on conferences. You have just to do it somewhere. So Microsoft, Google, some other big companies, they don't talk about Agile for teams. But what we see people are talking about now, and you see it on this conference, is Agile for enterprises, which emerged somewhere 2007, 2008, and later. And then, of course, some frameworks came, and later I will be talking about frameworks a bit more, but this is how it's triggered. But what is interesting, you see one more wave triggered just a few years after, call it business agility. So business agility is a very interesting wave, is a very interesting trend that goes together with the still spreading of agility on teams level, at least in our countries. I know that in Ukraine we learned something 2 years after the industry, and I think it's quite similar situation for you here, but you have more product companies, probably you learn faster than we do. And you see, the big companies, we definitely have big setups even in outsourcing, and we learn how to work with it in more efficient way. And then, of course, business starts thinking differently, and this is changing the game, and we will see more and more of this in next year. So I hope in next conferences we will see more and more interesting trends. But today we are talking about scaling. One of the reasons why many companies who were big enough already, maybe dominating on the market, maybe not feeling the pain on this 4 main driver, but still deciding, let's change to something more agile, but still do it on the whole scale of organization of hundreds and sometimes thousands of people. And the reason for this is that the whole industry start caring about value, the real value, the usage we deliver to our users. Not something we promote, not something we bill for, and something that's really needed for the user with their real needs at the moment they need our software. So many organizations start transforming, they start changing their structures, organizational structures. And again, I see this trend. I've worked just over this half of the year, I worked with several companies, new enterprises and old enterprises. And they change with one main significant thing. They start organizing around value. So call it value stream, the way the company delivers the value. And it's not only delivery team inside, it's not only developers who do the game. We always know that you can do the wonderful Scrum in your team, but then you then you reach the limits of your organization. Your product people, your marketing people, your management will be your limits. And in order to survive, company starts reorganizing on all levels and organizing around value stream. This is definitely one of the prepositions to start transforming, especially when you're already big. And then when you start transforming on a scaled level, you can see the trend. And the trend says, again, this is a State of Agile report, so they interviewed many companies, and they asked it a simple question. What helped you to scale? And actually some more other interesting questions. And many people said, okay, one of the things that helped us to scale was consistent processes and practices. So yes, we respect individuals and interactions and all this agile mindset, but still when we are a big company, when we have 100 developers working unaligned, working on very agile hippie style, they go to the different sides and the whole company doesn't benefit from this agile. So definitely some practices are needed, the best practices, let's call them. Then of course some tool, demand in the tool is still great when you have 100 of people sitting in different offices in the same building or sitting in the different offices in the different cities, especially in the different countries. And just maybe a quick survey, who has more than one team working together on the same product or project? Just to understand the scaling level. Okay, just a third part of the conference, and the rest, do you have just one team or do you have many teams? Okay, maybe can you hear me on the last row? Yeah? Kirill? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Okay, good. So one more tip is consistent practices delivered to organization by someone who already knows how to get there. It could be an external consultant or it could be internal consultants who become change agents and working across the organization. Today we had several talks from people who work as internal consultants and working from team to team, not playing one delivery manager role or something like this, but their role is to be the change agent and go across it. And then of course one of the critical, especially if you are going to jump into the scaling problem, one of the critical problems is to have the top management support. I will say you will never scale up without top-down support. That's simply. That's my experience, that's the industry experience shows and so on. And then, of course, a team of changing agents, because one person is not enough to change the organization of hundreds of people. Definitely there has to be a group of managers, of people really doing this stuff, but still attached to the idea to change the organization. This is the top 5 drivers, and when it comes to the practices, market propose you a bunch of frameworks already. The definition of the framework compared to the methodology is that methodology is more prescriptive and more prescribing, do that. The framework says you can try that, you can try this, and if you get this together, you will get better result. And then, of course, you can see the market grows, and there's a special Agile knowledge base. You can just Google this title, Agile Scaling Knowledge Base, ask, and you will download this spreadsheet. The guys who did this spreadsheet, they did amazing work. They prepared analysis of all frameworks you can see on the different aspects. What inspired me on this spreadsheet, sorry guys, you can read this. So if you look to one parameter which says popularity and established practices, if we compare other frameworks on scale, we can see that, okay, the simple idea Scrum is already known for 10 years. It's introduced in 2006, but it's not the framework itself. It says if you have several teams, they have to talk to each other daily or twice a week. That's obvious, but it doesn't help you to scale. When you want to change 100 of people and say, okay, how do we work? You need a bit more. You need a bit more hints. And we all like the Spotify. Spotify explains, advertise, many people on conferences explain, oh, we like to introduce something Spotify model. But Spotify model has no support. There's no instruction how to get to the status which is presented by Henrik Kniberg. I really like Henrik, but it's a bit more advertising of Spotify as a business. So many people in the world knows about Spotify. That's good. But does it help you when you come to the challenge of transforming your company? Probably not. So here's the 3 leaders. And one of the most defined one, surprise, is Scaled Agile Framework. Probably because it was the first who started significantly collect the knowledge collected from different implementations. And after myself, we'll hear a more advanced talk about Scaled Agile Framework, but I'll get some inspiration from this in my talk also. So before we go to the scale, to the patterns, to the hints you need to look at when you scale, I would like us to step back and look to the metaphor of the tree. Has anyone seen the tree? Okay, you are not sleeping yet. So the trees has a very powerful thing, the roots that keep the whole structure. And on my trainings, I've done an exercise called Agile tree. Because when you look to the industry, you hear a lot of terms, you hear a lot of practices. And often you say, oh, this is Agile. The backlog is the main practice that you need to introduce. No, it is not. The daily stand-up is the best practice you have to introduce. No, it is not. So usually you need to look to some principles, very deep things that will not change whatever practice you use. And based on these principles, people who are building this tree, who are growing your organization, people use principles to do some practices. And then you have this bunch of practices. You do Scrum, you do XP, you do some other techniques, you do work with user stories, or you don't, you use case, or some other practices. But all of them based on this. Literally, they're based on 2 main philosophies, Agile and Lean, as we saw in the beginning on this agility, maturity, whatever, agility evolution. So if we look to the core of Agile, I really like the way Alistair Cockburn started explaining the Agile. He said the manifest was done in 2001. It's 15 years old. It's definitely outdated because it was stated by the 17 people, just 17 people representing the whole industry at that moment. And it's not, the document is not going to change. They promised never to rewrite it again. And this is true because the document served its purpose many years ago. But still we are trying to find the reasons what the Agile is. And Alistair explains this in a very simple way, just 4 verbs. 4 verbs. Agile is a collaboration. Collaboration inside teams, collaboration between customer and teams, collaboration in all possible ways. If you don't have collaboration, probably your agility is not good as my agility. Deliver. We are in IT business, we are in software teams, we have to deliver. That's it. We have to deliver. Regularly, fast, deliver for feedback, deliver for value, deliver for whatever possible, but we have to deliver. If we don't deliver, we can do whatever practices we do, but we are not agile. And reflect. Regularly reflect on the product we built, reflect on the feedback from the customers, from the users, reflect on our processes, reflect on our team happiness, reflect on anything you can do. And then the most complicated part that not many companies do, to improve. Because you have to really have to be there to change something. And in a modern way of explaining Agile, you really have to be ready to change even already working stuff. Because response to change is not enough. You have to be already embracing the change. Sometimes if it works well, people tend to stop changing. And they can say, oh, we are a good company. We're already doing good Agile. Let's do the business. Let's deliver more and more feature. And what happens to this company? What happens to these companies? They are, okay, not dying probably, I hope so. But at least they stuck, they degrade, they got to some regression. So we definitely need to challenge ourselves. Can we do something better? Can we do the better quality? Can we do the zero bug tolerance? Does anyone have a zero bug tolerance policy? It's possible. I heard about this for 10 years already, but then still we don't have many companies who go to the conference and explains, we did that, and we reached a zero bug tolerance. So we had a technology track. Probably next year I hope to hear the talk there about zero bug tolerance. Just an example. We have to be really consistent to improve. So let's make a scale. 1 team is good, but let's have 10 teams. Just imagine you have 10 teams. Okay, maybe 5. At least 3 working together on the same product. So let's grow up with a hurt in our mind. So if you look through this model of hurt of Agile to the scaling techniques, it comes easy. First of all, when we talk about big organization, we definitely need to introduce some layers to better understand the organization. On the very low level, we talk about teams. We need Agile teams on the bottom level. We need Scrum teams or Scrum and XP teams, and that's it. If you don't have it on this level, don't scale. First, start with it. So any framework, any scale framework says about everything on top of the teams. So none of the frameworks really bother on this because already Agile for teams is ending trend. You have to have it already. Then, of course, we introduce a program metaphor. The program metaphor in Scaled Agile Framework, it called it Agile Release Train. Does anyone know why the train used as a metaphor? Yes, because when you come to the metro station, it changes. But the whole idea is that the train is a group of teams working together on delivering the same value. So it's both organizational pattern and the very good metaphor on the way this pattern works. So next we can have the portfolio level. The portfolio is the top management, maybe just 3 people in your company or 5 or 10 people who make the decision. And here you can have absolutely good organization, delivering value every 2 weeks, but crap in, crap out. If you don't do the wise decisions on this level, you don't have the good result on this level. That's easy. Then, of course, when you scale, there's some roles. On the bottom level, we still have the Scrum team, but then, of course, we talk about 5 more teams working together. We need to coordinate them somehow, and we introduce some additional roles. We introduce roles on this program level, or if you are a really big organization, like thousands of people, then you have a bunch of programs working together, you need a bit, just maybe a few more people. So you can see how lean is a whole organization. We have hundreds of people here, and we have just 1, 2, 5, 6, 10 people on the whole driving structure. So it has to be lean. And then, of course, my advice to you, definitely look to decentralization. The companies that can trust their employees, trust to their teams to do the change will survive. Is it clear? So if you don't decentralize, if you don't let the people do the work and decide how to do the work, then of course you cannot scale. And then of course we can talk about practice groups. Today it was many times mentioned, it was a great talk by Michael about communities of practices. So actually do the community. Every framework, scaled framework, says this is a way to survive. Henrik Nieberg advertises chapter guilds, communities that works across tribes, across trains. Every even not scaled team, scaled company explains how do they use this. So definitely you need to learn how to use this, because having 100 of people and not sharing the knowledge how to work, it's definitely not the way to scale. Okay, so we go to the next, to the deliver. To deliver the value. So the whole organization, again, oriented across value streams, across value delivery. How do we deliver? We aim to some values that our company believes in. Going to new markets, going to the new products, whatever. We arrange our organization. And then, of course, we have some backlogs like coordination way. And then, hello to the tools. If you then don't have a tool, okay, maybe you can sit together, you can use room, you can have one wall for product managers on top level, you can have another wall for the product owners on the team level, and some walls for the team. Lucky you if you have this setup, but probably, does anyone has this setup when you have 100 of people physically sitting in one, working on one product? Does anyone lucky? No? Sad. Okay, one lucky, 100 of people sitting together. 170. What country is it? Latvia. Ah. Okay, next time you speak on the conference, so organizers, please take the note. Okay, so we deliver the value, we aim to the value, we organize the value, synchronize through backlogs. And then, of course, the main misunderstanding about SAFe, as from my point of view, that we still need to deliver very often, every 2 weeks. If we have to ship to the production, we have to ship. We have to, you know, Facebook, they say they do the deployment 30 times per day. If you can do this, if your company already has this engineering culture, don't stop this when you scale up. Don't pretend you have to deploy only once per quarter. No, keep doing this. You develop on cadence, but you release anytime, so you deploy with the speed of your organization. But what is the surprise for the big organization? Who had the feeling of the big organization deploying once per year? Oh, yeah. So the bad news for you, you have to deploy quite often, not later than a quarter, than period. And this is a real change for many organizations. They start introducing engineering culture, which had to be introduced many years ago. But that's a good surprise, probably. Okay, then a challenge that comes to the product people. And what I see over years, over several years, when we emerge the knowledge about doing Agile, I mean, on the team level, we still not learning how to be Agile on the product level. So the product managers, the product owners, the business people, they become a bottleneck. And this is probably one of the reasons of this business agility wave that is rising. So the business starts thinking how to slice the product. And this is a very famous explanation of the difference between iterative development and incremental development. Because when you do it incrementally, you grow the product from the idea through a lot of changes to the real product you deliver to the market. So when you're doing the big product, a lot of top managers, a lot of product managers, they simply believe in this way of delivering. How agile is that? It's probably not even possible in a real life. So definitely learning how to do this, it's a big problem, and this is actually can stop your delivery. The team can deliver, but they don't know what to deliver. Or they deliver crap. That's also possible. Of course, you can optimize the whole. So practically, again, as I said, if you deliver to the end user, to the customer, then you have to deliver it as fast as possible, get the feedback, the change everything, the flow. Every organization has their flow. Today, Victor had been explaining about analyzing the flow in his subset of the organization. I heard some other explanations from other speakers. So every time when you optimize the system, you still need to remember about the flow and optimizing the whole system, because it's not enough to be very fast Scrum team somewhere in the middle of the organization. You will have a lot of people around you who are not so fast as you do. You know, when you drive on the high-speed track. So if it's empty, you fly. If it's crowded, you stay. So definitely we need to optimize everything. So after delivery, we go to the reflect. What to reflect on? What do we need to reflect? We need to know where are we going and have we reached this from the product point of view, for example. Or we need to know our process aims, or we need to know our expectations. And then we simply compare, have we get there or not? And that's very easy to do, analyzing different aspects. Here's an article. If you go to the scaledagileFramework.com, every icon there is clickable, and there's a lot of information. It's a public open framework. And there's one article about built-in quality. There are a lot of ideas of different aspects to look at, to reflect on the quality of your organization process, of your product, and everything. So definitely we need to look at some real numbers, and today it was discussed. I think some speakers were challenged, like, how do you measure, have you succeeded or not? I heard these questions. And definitely we can measure something, and we can reflect on this wisely. And then, of course, we reflect on solution. Does it fit to customer needs? If not, probably we have to do something different in next iteration, in next cadence. Or does it fit to our people who work in our organization? Can they have a joy of work in our organization? Can they deliver more than they do it today? And we can change it after that, after we know what to change. And then, of course, we have improve. You see, we have aspects. The framework suggests you special events. It suggests you special techniques. So on team level, it's demo, retrospective. On group level, it's inspect and adapt. Metrics, some people in charge to make sure the change happens. So we improve. Definitely we scale up, but we still keep this simple pattern: collaborate, deliver, reflect, and improve. We just need a bit more techniques, and that's it. That's a way to scale the organization. And as I said, we never stop improving. At the moment you say, we are done, we're good enough, you will start dying. So definitely some companies die quite long. When we look to the big picture, this is a modern picture which is already based on some experience. Michael will explain later how did we get to this picture. But the whole idea, many companies say, wow, 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 we are not so big. So you're scared with this picture. Many companies say, we are not thousands of people. We are just maybe hundreds or less than 100 people. SAFe doesn't work for us. Yes, it could collapse. So you can skip the levels that you don't need, which is aimed for many solutions, many products company. If you have just one product, one bunch of the teams, let's start from a simple view. And then, of course, you say, here we have Scrum teams, 3 at minimum, because at 3 teams you already have dependencies and coordination. 5 is already a challenge, 10 teams, 12 teams, it's a big challenge, trust me. So then you introduce this level, and you still need to introduce this level. If you are not even big for this, you still need this. You still need a level for the teams and some wise decisions made on the top. Even if you sit together in one room with less than 100 people, even if you have just several teams working on different products, which probably doesn't require to get them together in a program, you still can do the wise decisions on the, call it portfolio level, but very simple, with papers, with some tool that can show you some numbers. That's it, that's enough. So just coming to the end of my presentation, not to bore you a lot. Many people say that frameworks, they oversimplify the problem. So they say it looks like scaling becomes an easy task. How do you think? Does it an easy task? No. People who try it says no. I see some. So definitely people who start using the practices, they can kill Scrum, they can kill a simple practice like, I don't know, pair programming, TDD, continuous integration. Even a simple practice can be misunderstood. When we have a bunch of practice, we still can misunderstand this. Many companies still have a problem with Scrum. But then, of course, when we have 100 of people, they can misunderstood even more. So when you scale, you always have to remember a simple pattern. You have to remember that on the low level, on the team level, you have to be agile. You have to get this. Then you scale up, you group the people, and you say, we work together on a common aim. We are aligned around value. And then, of course, we stay lean on the top level. We do the decision just in time. We do only analysis for the next items you really need to implement. And don't waste your time for preparing something you are not going to use, you are not going to implement. That's a simple pattern. You follow it and you scale up with the framework or without the framework. So every framework is an empirical knowledge. So practically, we always have to remember, before we try, we cannot get the experience. So we have to try. We cannot learn it from another presentation. We cannot learn it from another training, from another book. We have to give it a try. That's all what I want you. If you really want to try to scale up, just give it a try. And maybe you will invent your own framework and talk about this on the next conference. This is all from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Who has questions?
Okay.
So here is
same people,
the mic.
same questions. I'm joking. And keep some more questions to Michael. He will be.
Okay, so do you have any good examples where the scaling of Agile doesn't really work? I know that you mentioned several prerequisites about support from the management and processes and being Agile at the team level. So do you have any empirical, I don't know, like experiments where it didn't work and you have had to roll back or switch the approach?
Often scaling doesn't work when the organization is not ready. Either not ready on the mindset level, they simply don't have any kind of fraction here, and not ready on this level. As I said, you can even start with that. Often you understand that you need a scale if you already have a big number of teams working together, and the alignment is one of the main benefits of scaling up and organizing everyone in the same, let's call it, train, just using this framework. Because if you just imagine 100 of people work unaligned, work on their goals, work on their understanding what is the goal for the product, and they realize about some dependencies or realize they do something wrong just 6 months after. What is the effect for the organization does it make? How many? Yeah, you say time. Yeah, time. We lose time, definitely, and not only. So prerequisite is to definitely want to try, give it a try, have a support on top level. Some organizations, they simply jump. The top manager says, okay, everyone, we have to introduce Scaled Agile framework over next quarter. Otherwise, we die. Thank you. Here's a consultant. He will explain you how to do this. This is a tough challenge, definitely tough challenge, but at least it gives a sense of urgency. If there's no sense of urgency, they may not even want to change. They can be okay with this level, but let's wait until they start to feel the pain. So feeling the pain, sense of urgency is a kind of prerequisites, but sometimes it could be a polite way to do this. Sometimes, not always.
Any other questions?
You're tired, I know. Yeah, oh,
Just a sec.
one more question, please. It's a whole day listening, smart people.
Thank you. So we all remember the dark ages of basically the waterfall, right? So
Yeah.
outdated requirements, years and years in development, and after we switched to Agile, it was so nice and hip, like, hey, small teams, we're doing cool projects, that's all works. And after companies are growing and we're trying to scale. But my question is, how not to go back to the dark ages? How not to become a Darth Vader?
Yeah.
Because basically the biggest, my name is Andrei, I work for Fitbit. We follow safe, we scale, we have all these
It was
practices.
a great talk just few talks before, so you advertise your talk.
I do.
Yeah.
So my question is basically, what should we look for? What kind of dangers we can see in order not to go back to classical waterfall and not to just kill all the goods that were made over the last years of the best Agile practice?
Well, you probably know the answer, and we know the answer
Just for
from
fun,
the
we get
movie.
questions.
Yeah. So I think one of the reasons we've got the Darth Vader on the play is that we simply lost our herd. And this is probably one of the biggest problems. People start following the process, not, this is the answer probably. So if we lose the understanding on people level, and when you have 100 of people who are not mentally there yet, and you say, okay, tomorrow you do safe, not even Scrum, but let's do all together. This is definitely the major challenge. So the culture is strategy for breakfast. We know this, and we have to repeat this every time we do any kind of change, especially when we do such significant change of introducing scaled frameworks. And this happened to Darth Vader.
What do you think, how long time is going to take to introduce safe
Please.
How long time should take to introduce this practice?
I think Michael can answer this question better. How long does it take to change a company? So in my history, some companies, they change years. So I worked with company who started transforming almost 2 years ago. And I'm simply introducing a next speaker, Michael Stump, and probably he will give some more answers. Thank you. So Michael Stump represents the Scaled Agile Inc., the company that stands behind the framework. It's a company of practitioners who started working, and I'm really proud that one of the first methodologists was from Ukraine. This is a piece of advertising, yeah. It's not Michael, Alex Yakima, but Michael definitely knows, and he works with Scaled company for more years than I do. And how long do we have to change? 5 minutes?
So maybe just a short answer on your question. It depends. Standard consulting answer, because you cannot say every company, every context is different. You have small companies, you have large organizations. I think the question is, how fast can you start?